Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 2023 meeting of Pittsburgh's LGBTQIA+ Commission. I'm Sue Kerr, and I will be facilitating tonight's meeting. We're going to start with roll call. Our secretary, Billy Howman, will actually call roll.
Okay, yes, so this will test your ability to unmute and mute again, but you're only here if you respond. All right, Kathy Boyle.
Present.
Thank you. Cece.
Present.
Thank you. Denise DeSimone.
Here.
Calvin Ecker. It's already notified us that he wouldn't be here, I believe. Billy Heilman, I'm here. Sue Kerr.
Here.
Bruce Kraus. He's notified us that he won't be here. Julian McLean.
I'm here.
Great. Maria Montano has let us know she wouldn't be here. Lenny Orbovich has let us know that he won't be here. Richard Parsakian.
Yes.
Shantae Porter. We're still waiting for Shantae. Christopher Robinson.
I'm here.
Sarah Rosso.
I'm here.
Derek Tynes. We believe he's going to join us. And Guillermo Velasquez is already informed us he won't be here. So we have quorum, Sue.
Thank you. For our new commissioners who are joining us tonight, typically Billy just does a very quick roll call to save us a precious few minutes. But because you're joining us for the first time, and welcome, we'll give you a chance to match names with faces and for people to get a chance to meet you. And to our commission, existing commissioners, we have 2 new commissioners joining us. A third has been appointed and approved and will join us hopefully in July. So we're later on in the meeting, we'll get into a little bit more in depth in introductions, but welcome tonight, and hold on and we'll see where this meeting goes. Let's read. No, we're not going to read. Everyone has read the minutes, I trust, and we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Moved and approved. Any discussion?
Can I
Right.
ask, Derek is having a hard time with the link. Billy, can you resend that to him?
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes from May 2023, a second, no discussion, all in agreement? Aye, or put your hand up.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, the minutes are approved. They will be posted on the website as soon as possible. And Cece and Julian, again, one thing we do is we kind of move back and forth between verbal votes and hand votes. And we also use our first names. We don't get very formal in here. So feel free to join in with that. All right, we're going to talk about public comments. We launched those, or that option, for this meeting. And Billy, have we received any public comments?
See,
No.
Oh, Denise. I'm sorry, I asked the wrong person.
even better,
That's
she
right.
checked it. She checked it. So that's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
So typically when the protocol will be that when public comments come in, the cutoff is earlier this week, in the week of the meeting, and you would know ahead of time that comments have been received. We're not going to read them, but we will put them into the public content. So this is our very first time doing this, and I guess we're off to a decent start, and we'll see if next month we get some comments. I would encourage each commissioner to please get the link Denise, maybe you could send that around after the meeting again and
Okay.
share it with your social medias to encourage people to, if they have a comment, now we're ready to hear them. And we'll see what happens with that. Any other feedback on this? There's no motion here, so we don't.
I had a question, Sue.
Sure.
Where is this all streamed at?
YouTube on the city website, city channel
YouTube.
on the website.
Okay, thank
Okay. Do you need the link for that, Cece?
yes, if the link could be sent, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, can someone post that in the comments, please? We're gonna move on to reports. Excuse me, we're gonna start with, I'm gonna take a little liberty here and switch this around. Let's start with introducing the new commissioners, because this is kind of awkward having all these conversations and Cece and Julian don't even know our names. So why don't we start with number 3, introduce the new commissioners, and then we'll go back to the number 1 and number 2. Any objection to that? I'm overruling you. So here, I'm overruling the agenda. So I would like to introduce our 3 new commissioners, one of whom cannot join us tonight, and ask them to introduce themselves a little bit, tell us a little about themselves and preferred names. If you have a nickname you'd rather us use or a name, please tell us your pronouns, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll do a round of all the existing commissioners. So again, you get a chance to hear our names, see our faces, hear our voices, all that kind of stuff. So Cece, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I'm Catherine Calhoun, also known as Cece. I know I've mentioned this to some of you already, but I currently, am employed at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center as the Director of Education and Community Engagement. Aside from that, I do a lot of different things. I sit on a few boards. I am very involved within the community, and I'm happy to be here. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. Nice to see all of you and meet all of you.
Thank you. Julian?
Yes. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, so I actually sit on a board with CC as well. So the Urban League of Young Professionals, we sit on that board together. So it's a coincidence. Hi, Wanda. Nice to see you. So my full-time job, I am the program director at True T Pittsburgh. So we do a lot of queer art and activism. So programming around that. So we just had Too Hot for July. We're participating in Pittsburgh Pride Revolution, all that type of stuff. I'm at an event right now where we're participating. So at the Carnegie Museum of Art. And so yeah, I do a couple things around Pittsburgh as well, especially LGBTQIA gear. So I sit on the Open Doors board. I sit on the Bloomfield Development Corporation's board as well, trying to gear more LGBTQIA POC awareness and activity. And so, yeah, we are involved in the community. So that's a little spiel about me. Nice to see everyone as well.
And Julian, do you prefer to be called Julian?
Yeah, Julian, he, him.
Okay. We are linked to IT. Bill, who is a different person from Billy, sends out the invites with names on them so we can make sure that all the correct addresses, email addresses. I think for you, we had a True T and a Gmail. We could discuss that separately, but just to make sure that's running properly. Our third new commissioner is Calvin, and Calvin, they cannot be here tonight, so hopefully in July we'll have a chance to get to meet Calvin. And I think Calvin was referred by Lenny, so that's pretty great how that's working out. So I'd like us to go around and introduce ourselves. And I can't see any screens right now, so could we just go in alphabetical order, roll call? Billy, could you just say the names and then people can introduce themselves very briefly?
Sure, we'll start with Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Boyle. I work part-time at Hugh Lane Wellness Foundation. As well as this board, I'm on a couple advisory boards for Presbyterian Senior Care and for I forget what the other one is at the moment, but anyway, happy to be here. Thanks.
Oh, Denise is next.
Hi, I'm Denise DeSimon. I formerly was the CEO of Sea Leveled, and sold that business. Now I spend most of my time with Steel City Con. So I appreciate you guys joining and let me know if I can help in any way.
What is probably the coolest job any of us hold. Running a
Sometimes.
con here.
Okay, well, alphabetically, I'm next. I'm Billy Heilman. I'm on the commission and I'm the secretary of the commission, and I'm also currently on staff at the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers. I've been in the Pittsburgh Public Schools, well, technically since 1963 when I started kindergarten, but professionally since 1986 as a teacher. But now last dozen years I've been in a union, working in the union office, but I've also have, of course, a whole career of queer activism, not separate, but concurrent with my professional career. And then after me is Sue Kerr.
I'm Sue Kerr. I am serving as one of the 3 co-chairs. This is my 3rd term as a co-chair. We have 1-year terms. I live in the north side with my wife. I have a lot of cats. I'm a social worker by training. I'm disabled, so I do not work for pay. I work a lot for not pay. I'm doing community work. I'm a blogger, Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondence, and I'm also the board president of Pittsburgh LGBTQ Charities. Frequent emailer and big fan of Twitter still. Really looking forward to working with all of you. I know all of you outside of this, but this is going to be a new chance to mix it up, and that's going to be great. Welcome aboard.
Richard.
Hi, Richard Parsakian. I own Eon's Fashion Antique. It's a vintage clothing store for the past 37 years. I'm very involved in the arts community in Pittsburgh. I'm on the board of Pittsburgh Dance Council, Greater Pittsburgh Arts Council. Also very involved with Planned Parenthood. We have our big gala tomorrow night, so I'm getting ready for that. My big mission is to elevate and engage with queer artists in Pittsburgh, and I advocate for their visibility. Last week, a lot of you know that I commissioned Kyle Abraham to create a new work for my fashion event. And that was one of my most exciting moments, having a friend of his stature being represented in Pittsburgh with his dancer. So that's a small part of what I do. CC, I think we've met, so at the August Wilson Center.
Yes, we have several occasions. Yep.
So everybody, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Christopher.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Christopher Robinson. Currently serve as the founding director of the Bachelor of Social Work program at Penn State Greater Allegheny. I'm also a member of Pittsburgh Ballroom Scene, a legend and a leader in the ballroom scene here in our community, and founder of the House of Balenciaga and formerly the House of Infinity here in Pittsburgh. Happy to meet each of you.
Sarah.
Hey everyone, Sarah Rosso. I am the executive director of Hugh Lane and one of the 3 co-chairs of this commission. Cece, I don't know that I've had a chance to meet with you, but I know our team is working with August Wilson, so perhaps, and Julian, of course, welcome. Nice to see you. Love working with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
I think that takes care of the commissioners who are present.
Thank you for indulging me, and well, we always try to make sure our names are labeled when we have meetings, so we can. Okay, I'm glad that there's two of you, so it's not just one person and a whole bunch of other long-term folks. So we are now up to 16 commissioners. And as you all know from last month, Jam has left his position with the city and has relocated to Boston for some new adventures in higher education. So that seat with the Commissioner on Human Relations, which is a designated seat, will be filled by the mayor's administration. We don't know when, but they also have to fill that job, so I'm sure that would come first. But that's, you know, but that seat is not necessary for quorum, so we can continue to operate. And if we need to go consult the Commission on Human Relations, we can certainly go there to their existing staff and do so. So let's move on. Ironically, staffing update for the commission. We are staffed by a position called an idea manager. That's a DEI innovate. Wait, let's see, did I get it right? Innovation, diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility, I think is the acronym. And the person who filled that role recently left the city, so they're advertising right now and accepting applications. So we are without a staff person. We have been meeting since March of 2021, and we've been staffed for about 6 or 7 months total. So we're very used to working on our own. And the mayor's appointed commissioner, Maria, has been helping us with pieces when she can and connecting with us correct people. But to my knowledge, that's the latest update, that they're still very much in the hiring phase for that position. And okay, moving on to police and EMS liaisons to the community. I wasn't at last month's meeting, so I don't know how much you talked about this. Bringing everyone up to speed. The police liaison that was appointed under Mayor Peduto, that individual left the city, and so the position remained unfilled. It wasn't a full-time position, it's just an assignment. And we advocated immediately for it to be filled because those were resources allocated to our community, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to access them. It took a while, but we were able to get a meeting with the Director of Public Safety, Lee Schmidt. Director Schmidt was just fantastic. It was a great meeting, came prepared, and he has appointed someone from the police bureau, but also decided to appoint someone from the fire bureau and the EMS bureau, and a general public safety liaison that will kind of represent the smaller departments within that division. So that's fantastic. And it's always great when you go to a meeting and you get more than you asked for. I think that's something that, now I do want to clarify, these are liaisons to the community, not to the commission. So they're not commissioners, they don't report to us or anything like that. We will just interface with them as need be. And I am pulling up, I believe it's Eric Schultz. Is that, sorry, I'm not more organized. Yes, Sergeant Eric Schultz is the police liaison. And Oh. Deputy Chief Kristen Zalewski from the EMS. No, crew chief, deputy crew chief. She's not chief, she's a crew chief. We've talked with them by email, and we're in a process of setting up a preliminary meeting. When we get that set, we will invite everyone. It will be a hybrid style, so anyone, you can attend remotely if you would like, and we'll just have a chance to get to know them. And since the EMS position is brand new, we're really going to be creating something there, which is pretty exciting. And we haven't heard about the Fire Bureau, but I think these two are good starts. So let's discuss any feedback on that. Congratulations to everybody for let's getting this done. I mean, it took a while, but we did it. Someone has to say something. Can't leave me hanging here.
Great work, team.
Thank you, co-chair. Questions? These jobs don't have descriptions. So we that if we think that's something that should happen, we can recommend it. If we want to help shape the kinds of responsibilities, obviously we don't have veto power on that, but I suspect that Director Schmidt will have our backs if we see any particular needs. He himself is very interested in adding training and talk about his own training at the city, competency training on LGBTQIA. And we understand these liaisons, it's broader than just LGBTQIA too. So we want to approach this from an intersectional perspective because public safety interactions are very complicated. And usually people are very vulnerable. So we want to do the best that we can. Any other feedback? I'm really proud of us. So
Sue, did they ask for our feedback in terms of shaping the job description?
no, they don't have any job descriptions. They've just appointed them
Okay.
and sent them to us. So if we would like to see that happen, we could suggest that at our first meeting with them. Or it may not even be a formal job description so much as another word for that.
Well, I think that we should press hard on getting this initial meeting to happen soon. Like, look, I certainly hope it happens at least during this summer. Maybe that's a good time to do it. And that in that discussion, I think we should talk about how not only can the commission help their visibility so that our community, all the constituencies in our community know the existence of a liaison to public safety, the public safety departments, and how they can access them if they have a need, including organizations, as well as, also increasing our visibility through them. So to try to attempt a symbiotic relationship with them if we feel like that's a good thing for us to do. But let's have an open-ended discussion with them on how we can do this, because I think in some ways they can help us, in some ways we can certainly help them. And that will, and I know that we can map that to our commission goals as well as the legislation that established us, the specific duties that we have.
We have started the dialogue. The challenge is that they both work shifts and they have to meet with us when they're on duty because of union regulations. And so it's just taking a little coordination to find. And of course, they have to, do their prior, other work. So I suspect that some of it just got slowed down by everybody being a little summary, but we will make a point. I will make a point to make sure we get it on the books by the end of June, before the end of summer, for sure. I think before the end of July is reasonable. And Cece and Julian, another thing is that when we meet in the community like this, we have other kinds of meetings that we do. Sometimes people take the lead, but we invite all commissioners to attend, typically, unless it's a very designated specific piece. So even if at the last minute your schedule frees up and you can jump on Zoom to join us for a meeting like this or others, you're always welcome to do that. because we want to have as much representation at the table as possible for these kinds of conversations.
Okay,
And-
great, great, great. Sounds good.
Great. And it will be important for us to emphasize too, we are not a gatekeeper here. We helped advocate for this. We will work with these folks and their departments, and we will carry things to them that are brought to us, but nobody has to come through us. If True Chi wants to go have a conversation with one of these folks, you know, we'll just make sure the information's available so organizations can access it. But this is definitely not something that we have to be part of any kind of interaction on. I think that's been a little bit of a misperception. So when you're presenting this to people, please make sure that you represent that. So any other thoughts, comments? I'll come back to this. Okay, let's move on to treasurer's report. Denise? Denise, are you here?
Let me get myself off mute.
Okay.
I'm putting together, well, first the brochure I printed out, and Richard was kind enough to put in his store and walk down to 5801. About 150 brochures. So we just printed the English version. We're still waiting on the translated versions. So I have another about 100 here, if anybody needs them or wants them. As far as the budget, I'm putting together, based on the feedback that I received from some of you, just a budget that I'll share with you before the next meeting for you to review. I'm trying not to make it complicated so that maybe we can participate in these budget meetings, but I've not been able to get a response from the city on participation in their budgets. So that's where we stand with that.
Let's go back to tease these out, just to make sure everyone's up to speed on what we do. So the brochure is simply an informational brochure. It's our only promotional piece. We had a previous version that we created in 2022. And of course, it's something that gets out. It's not evergreen, so we have to update it. And we have to go through the city printer. And because we don't have a staff person, that's where that starts to become a bit of a logjam. So Denise has been brainstorming ways to get around that. And to her credit, she took the initiative to go ahead and just get them printed so we could have something for Pride. And Denise, I really want to commend you for that. I think that was a generous investment. And but it should be an unnecessary one because we have city resources that we should be able to access. So we have to, not a reflection on you, but we've been talking about this for 2 years about funding to get things done. And it isn't progressing very well. So that's a concern. Also, translation. It was requested that we provide a translation in Spanish. We have to go through the city's translation bureau. And Denise and I were discussing today some other ways to try to access that resource. And if there are other languages that should be a priority, let's by all means pitch them. But I think we should start with Spanish because we have to we don't even actually have an official city printed brochure in English, and then Spanish, and then move on. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah.
Denise, could you circulate the brochure for our new commissioners to make sure they get a chance to look at it and make sure they're on it, their names and.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll edit it first and then.
Okay. Does anyone want copies? Sarah, can you take some at Hugh Lane? Julian,
Yeah.
can you some? I
Yeah,
mean,
we can
anyone.
take some. Yeah, I'll definitely take some. I'm True Chi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely love some as well, so if possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Denise, can you follow up with by email on how to get those to people? And
Sure.
okay. So moving on to the budget. Now this does tie in because we have had a budget since our early days in 2021, which was like our formative period. And yet we have never been able to access any of those funds. So I'm estimating that that's about $150,000 across 3 budget years that has been allocated for the LGBTQIA plus community through our commission line item in the budget, and yet has not been spent and is no longer available because of the way the budget works. So when the fiscal year ends, that money is by law designated for other purposes if it hasn't been spent down. We've asked to spend it down and that's never been clarified. So our work right now is we are creating our own budget to propose to the city. And instead of just asking for them to create a budget for us, we're going to come to them with a budget and negotiate and hopefully get something going. And this would be both operational expenses as well as staff. Is that a fair representation of what has happened?
Sue, from what I understand, the budget was always to go to a staffing position and not operational funds. I would love to have operational funds, and I know we could do a lot of in-house in-kind services, especially to have the brochure printed. But I don't know why it's why it's taken so long to have this done.
Well,
and I applaud Denise she took the initiative to spend her own funds to have a few of these made. We should not have to do that.
yes, I'm grateful that she did it, but I'm concerned about the precedent, and I want to be careful that commissioners who are not in a position where they can do something like that don't feel any sort of pressure to do that, to spend personal money on public work. Richard, with regard to the budget, it's really been up in the air. We've had several different interpretations on what the budget said. And at this point, it's money under the bridge at this. So I agree with you. I'm not sure what the money was allocated for because city council and the mayor's office have given us different interpretations. So this year we're going to go in and tell them what we think the money should be for. And part of that will be this staffing position. And I do agree. We've identified some preliminary operational pieces like printing, I mean, it's an in-kind thing, but it could still be in our budget as an in-kind piece. But if you think there's something we should spend money on, now is the time to tell Denise. And she'll bring it to us next month and we'll have a chance to really talk about it in depth. Like I suggested some money for workshops. So we can do that, some stipends and travel expenses and things like that. So
in the past, we used funds for town hall initiatives to pay for food and things like that. We always had the space donated, but we want to have community engagement, and the town halls were really good and doing that. Sarah, I know you were a big part of that too. This is when we were both on the advisory council before we became a commission.
another piece that I proposed to Denise, and we'll talk in more detail about, but I think we should know. We recently learned that our ability to go to in-person meetings is hampered by the budget for innovation and performance, staffing limitations and resource constraints. So something we need to talk about is advocating for more resources in that department to better serve not only our commission, but gender equity, and I'm sure all of the commissions. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not asking the IMP people here to weigh in on it, but I just want to let you know that's an example of something where we should really be part of that conversation because it has a real impact. We're not able to meet live, in person, I mean, until that's resolved. And so
I don't believe any commission has been meeting live. They've all been on Zoom.
Right.
And I know the new facility was under construction on Boulevard of the Allies, and I don't know what the status is of that. And that would have been a place for live meetings. And they
Yeah,
could be hybrid too, of course.
right, it's not the location, it's the staff and the resources, the equipment and all of that. And so it's a good example of how we need to advocate for other departments to be properly funded so that we can do our work to the best of our ability. So if you're there, I'm sure there might be even other examples, perhaps the liaison roles at the public safety departments, or that some of that budget should be under LGBTQIA. So now the city is meeting throughout the community with people to get feedback on the budget. Those meetings are all over the place. They're all over social media. I know Denise is sharing them as well on our social media. So everyone has plenty of opportunity to weigh in, both through the commission and as an individuals. So we got to get it across the finish line this year. And that's going to take everybody paying close attention to this. So any other comments or thoughts? I don't know. Should budget be capitalized in that sentence? I don't know. I don't think so. Billy, you don't have to change it here. I'm just.
Oh,
messing
it's
with
a
you.
non-issue for me. That's it.
Okay. All right, let's move on then to something that is an issue for you. The secretary's report. Segue.
Yes, so my report consists, solely of that reporting that we continue to have 2 officer positions that are vacant. We have a 16-member commission currently, plus or minus, as time changes, but we have 6 positions that are officer positions, and those officers are selected by the commissioners. Structurally, that's to happen annually, but at times there are vacancies during a term. Right now, we have 2 vacancies, the outreach coordinator and the one of the co-chair positions. We have 3 co-chairs, a treasurer, a secretary, and an outreach coordinator for the 6 positions. We have a vacancy in a co-chair position and an outreach coordinator positions. The jobs are described in the bylaws. I won't read them here, but I do think that we should schedule a selection process, and then certainly the current officers and others are available for anybody who has questions about the role and the work that's associated with the officer positions. One thing that is kind of firm is the first Thursday of each month, the executive committee, which is made up of the officers, meets to prepare the agenda for the 3rd Thursday regular meeting that this meeting is. And so that's one obligation of being an officer. If anybody's interested, ask about it, consider it. We need to have 3 co-chairs, and we do have embedded in our bylaws a commitment to diversity too. So the makeup of the co-chairs, we're always looking that we have a diverse group who are filling those roles. I'll just go ahead and say, let's do a selection process in July, and maybe do some networking between now and the July meeting to see if there's anybody interested. You could always put your name forward at any time, but there'll be an official nomination process and selection process at the meeting that we do this. That's really all I have to say. If anybody else wants to add anything.
I could add that if any of the new commissioners want to take that plunge and put their name forth to fill any of those positions, that is something we would love. Am I correct?
Yes.
Everybody's eligible, yes. Who doesn't already hold a position, yes.
And, well, you could move, Denise moved from one position to another, so Marcus did as well. CC, Julian, one thing we decided when we last month, when we were looking at these vacancies, is that we wanted to wait because we knew that you would be onboarding soon and we wanted you to be part of the vote and decision. Not necessarily take the role on, but certainly if you are interested, you don't have to make any kind of commitment to that right now. But so that you realize we wanted the three of you to be part of this decision. And then we'll be repeating it again in December when we elect all the offices for 2024. So you'll get a little preview. Some seats cannot run for office. That's the mayor's appointee, the city council appointee, and the CHR appointee. Anyone else, Billy? I don't think so.
Yeah, if you're employed in an elected official's office.
Yes, that's right. So
Yeah, to be completely transparent, CC and I are the next president and vice president of the Urban League Young Professionals. And so we just, I guess, like I'm interested, and I'm definitely interested in the process of selecting the person as well, and maybe potentially being that person. But I just like to see, like, what does it exactly mean to be like the outreach coordinator? Like, how much in-depth work though are we looking at, and the commitment, basically. So, but yeah, definitely interested.
well, I'll speak to you from my experience that we really need these are worker bee positions. They're not, because we don't have a staff person. So we're doing a lot of the work that a staff person would do. And that's a lot of email, a lot of responding to questions, getting brochures printed, all of that sort of thing. So right now it does require some time. And that's one of the reasons for the three co-chairs, is that because the work is divided across three people, which in addition to the facilitation, we rotate who facilitates the meetings, but it does kind of require the capacity to not only attend the meetings, but be available other times throughout the month. But do we want to have any more discussion on this, or is this something maybe we should make sure everyone has the job descriptions and talk about it on the email list? Is that?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful for me, just to see like the job descriptions of everything.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll send out an email on this topic with the specific language pulled out of the bylaws. So it's just, you don't have to search for it, and so everybody can read it.
Great.
Get it to the whole group.
And the commitment would be to fill out the term. So it would be through December. So if someone's willing to do it, including our existing commissioners, for that 6-month period to help us out, I got to tell you, having 2 co-chairs when we need 3 is hard. There's burnout there. So, and that's everyone's responsibility to like kind of be aware of that and think about how we can collectively avoid having some sort of, co-chair meltdown in the middle of a meeting with someone.
She was talking about me, right? No, I'm just
I would. I mean, it's just a lot. Like we met yesterday. We did some media interviews. Sarah and Billy and I had to meet at 8:45 in the morning, which is to do an interview, and then there'll be interviews tomorrow. There's something happening tomorrow. So I'm not begging, but I am. Please, somebody join.
Oh, I am. Please.
Yeah. And when we talk about diversity, Billy says diversity, I like to think of representation, because it's not just any one particular part of our identities. It's I think people can look at us right now and say the 2 co-chairs are 2 cisgender white lesbians, and that's not accurate, but that's what people will perceive. And part of it is inviting people to look past what their perception is, but part of it is also realizing that, Sarah and I are in the similar wheelhouses in a lot of ways. So she has way cooler glasses than I do, but you know, what are you gonna do? You are a millennial, so, you know, that's, all right, so we'll move on. Enough banter on that. Well, on to the outreach coordinators report. We don't have an outreach coordinator, but Denise has been handling these duties.
Yeah. So we got the form out, which we talked about already. So that was, Billy, I just made a executive decision and said it's ready to go. The next thing we're gonna do is put a Google Calendar. So if, you know, if there's any dates of any events that you think it would be good for us to attend, that's the purpose of that calendar. So if you send me any dates or any events that, you know, are worthy, then what I'll do is put it on the calendar and send everybody an invite. You can either accept or decline, and that way we can all be on the same page of what activity is happening. So if there's, you know, committees or meetings or partner events that you think it would be good for us to attend, if you just send it to me, I can add it to that calendar and everybody will get notified.
Did you just say things that are worthy?
Yes. Like coffee at Starbucks is not worthy.
Unless it happens to be a meaning of it's functioning as a community calendar because it is accessible to the public and we have it pinned on our Facebook page. But it's not meant to be a substitute for actual calendars that are managed by people who have staff and resources to do that. So we don't by any means ever want to say that this is comprehensive. But frankly, there's a lot of really great stuff happening out there that we should be telling people about. Plus, we're going to make a point to add all the what are those days called? It's like Day of the Lesbian and Day of whatever. Awareness days. That's right.
Visibility,
So,
yeah.
Day of the Lesbian. That sounds like a movie. Sorry. Yeah, visibility and awareness days. So there are a lot of them and it's fantastic. So we're going to put them in there. That's great content. And it's also just a really good way to give a little bit of visibility by putting it out there on social media to remind people to think about it or Google or look up or consider something. So anything like that. All right, let's move on. Denise, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Oh, again, just to kind of keep making sure Julian and Cece know what our status is. In terms of social media, we are only on Facebook at this time. There's a whole complicated list of reasons about First Amendment rights and time and staffing and all that went into that decision. And we'll be happy to fill you in outside of this meeting. But if you have an interest in that, we've done a lot of work around that and we can make sure you get all that information to read over. Okay, our special committees, working group on city council relationship. So Denise and I are responsible for this, and we actually met today and discussed that in terms of our post-agenda meeting that we had this spring. We're in the process of setting up meetings with the members of council to start dialogue around all the things that could go into our interactions and relationships and pieces like that. So we will let you know as those meetings are scheduled, and if anyone wants to join us, that will be something we can do. But these are very targeted to this committee. It's not meant to be pitching something to them unrelated to the commission. It's definitely meant to be about how our institutional system works. So, and then we have scheduled our next post-agenda meeting for October 10th. I believe that is confirmed. And it's gonna just kind of float here on the agenda for the next 3 months while we plan. Someone's got to plan what we talk about. When we go to a post-agenda meeting, that means that we create the agenda, we present the topics, and then the members of council ask us a lot of questions. Our first post-agenda meeting was fantastic. And I will be the first to say how pleasantly surprised I was, because I didn't think it was going to work, and it did, and it was great. We had lots of robust discussion, and some things have come out of it that are already in place. It was the first one in history of Pittsburgh, so that's important to note. It's not terribly formal except for following Robert's rules, but we had, I think, 6 counselors there, members of council, and they asked a lot of questions. So we are very actively trying to build up our interactions with city council. Now, our Councilman Kraus is the appointee from city council to our commission. He will be leaving office in December. And city council will determine who their next appointee could be. It doesn't have to be a counselor, it could be a staff member or someone external, but that doesn't really. The only reason that that's important right now is that if there's things that we want to accomplish through a council, working with Bruce well before his term ends is probably the smartest thing to do. And we're going to start with Councilwoman Gross. Deborah Gross, because she's been in council for a while, so she certainly knows how it works. She's a you know, clear ally, and then we'll just make our way around. We can only do so many per month. This is the example of the time that is required of the executive committee, because somebody has to get these meetings scheduled, somebody has to get the agenda, has to make sure people attend, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to space it out to 1 or 2 a month, and there will be potentially 2 new members of council in 2024. So of course we'll have to wait to meet with them until January. So any comments on this? Any thoughts on city council? We just we had the proclamation at the end of May. That was a very, very lovely experience. I think that's later on the agenda though. I'm cheating again. All right, Billy, I get the hint. Move on. Commission and Pirates Working Group. Another ongoing committee we have is a relationship with the Pirates. We serve in sort of an advisory role, which is that we meet with them on a semi-regular basis to talk about the work that they're doing, the work that we're doing. It stemmed from an incident where they brought in someone to perform who was not a good candidate for reflecting the values of the city or the community or anyone, actually a very, very hateful person. And that led to ongoing relationship. It's separate from Pride Night at PNC Park, although we participate in that, but that's a different kind of event. We're talking more about more like a internal training and all that sort of thing. And Lenny's not here. He was at the last meeting, but things went a little wonky with Pride Night at PNC Park this year. Mostly it seems due to some miscommunications about how which organizations were included. They didn't even actually consult with the community groups and kind of tried to hide behind us, saying we had signed off on the plans, which not only is not our responsibility, and we would never agree to that, but we also did not ever see that list of plans. So that wasn't accurate. So what we proposed is, well, Sarah, are you still here, Sarah?
I am.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable maybe just talking a little bit about where we're going to go with Naylee on this?
Yeah, the quickest version of this is that our commission reached out to the Pirates related to other equity issues that weren't necessarily specific to Pride Night games last year. And at the same time, the Pirates were meeting with lots of community groups. This year, when none of that happened, there was an issue where their fundraising mechanism shifted pretty significantly, and they weren't contributing back into queer and trans local organizations like they had previously. And so I had received some feedback from members of the community that had been involved in softball leagues, previous iterations of GLSEN and other things, that they had some concerns. And so I reached out to the Pirates, and that's when they sort of connected back to the commission. And so they were really responsive in terms of getting Niley involved, who is their senior DEI VP for the Pirates. The steps that they took were to assure that in August, they're going to start planning for Pride Night games in the future. This isn't the end all be all, it's one night, but it does help the Pirates focus on equity and inclusion throughout the year, which is really important. And to consider how they're prioritizing LGBTQ groups or not as part of those processes when they're, when they have a fundraising mechanism and a drop-down ticket. And no shade to Big Brothers Big Sisters, we work with them, we love them, but like anybody who buys a ticket is going to recognize them over some of our smaller LGBTQ orgs who are doing that work 365 days a year, who are led by Black and brown folks, who are not necessarily at the visibility level nationally of a Big Brothers Big Sisters, right? And so that's where some of that disconnect came from, and those are the ongoing conversations that need to be had. And I know folks who are part of this commission have been involved from an organizational perspective with the Pirates. So, that's where it's headed. They also have been very receptive to doing ongoing training and continuing to work with us from an advisory perspective on, embedding equity overall, especially as it relates to gender and sexuality with the Pirates, and how to make the park a welcoming experience for everybody in the city. But particularly for people who are transgender, gender expansive, and LGBT more broadly.
Thank you, Sarah. This is an example too, where like we're all juggling our multiple hats, because Sarah through Hugh Lane is doing the training. So we're trying to be very, not herself always doing the actual training. We want to be very transparent from an ethical perspective, and then also just so that the Pirates understand what hat we're wearing when we're in what kind of conversation with them. They generally get that. Really, I didn't go to Pride Night. Did anyone else attend?
I did go to Pride Night, and I had a great time.
Well, that's great. That's
Okay.
great. Anyone else? Any feedback from Julian?
Yeah, I was gonna say that the Pirates reached out to us, True Tea particularly, and they invited us to like the charity suite. And so like we were upstairs in a box right next to like the fireworks. So I didn't know if they've offered that to any other community groups or what their involvement was with any other group. But to us, they were very accommodating, and yeah, we had a great time.
Historically, that has been an ongoing source of, let's just say we need a lot of community input on how that decision is made, who is invited to that box.
Right. Right.
I mean, I'm very glad they invited True Tea. I think that was a wonderful decision. But going back to 2004, when we had the first Pride Night, it's been that's one of those issues where they should talk to the community groups and figure it out in a way that's equitable and fair across multiple years, not just year to year. But I will say that my organization, Pittsburgh LGBTQ Charities, we invited this Nuns of Steel, our local house of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. That group was had a fiasco in LA with the Dodgers, and that was very disrespectful. So our organization, we had 10 free tickets. We just immediately turned around and offered them one to Billy, who represented us, but then also to the sisters. And they came, they had some really interesting experiences and a lot of encounters. They were able to manifest there. And I was very pleased to have them represent. And so from our point of view, that was a success. But anyone else? Billy, how was the flag? You were unfurling the flag on the field. Did that go well?
I thought it went I thought it was wonderful. And I think the thing that was really pretty cool about it was the rather detailed description of the progress flag by the park announcer. So there was some time spent there where anyone who in the park who was listening was getting, some education on queerness. So I kind of like that idea at the ballpark. They did have the president of the Pirates and the vice president, some various vice presidents that came down onto the field while we were unfurling. I think one of them joined us for that. And no, I don't think one of them, but they were there at the time, but they were very, we're so glad you're here. I mean, they were very friendly, almost overly, but I think I think being overly friendly is important in this day and age. So I'm not criticizing it in any way. It was, I thought the effort that they made for the people who were part of that activity that I was part of was really quite genuine and remarkable. I enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me to do that. I got my picture taken with a parrot too, so that's great.
We have a cute little meme now that we made out of that, but
Indeed.
and again, just for a historical note for Cece and Julian to know that back in October, there was a series of radio ads broadcast on 8 local stations that were incredibly offensive, very deeply traumatizing. You may have heard them or heard about them. They were specifically deeply anti-trans, and we jumped into action as a commission along with other groups to get those ads off the air as fast as possible. And the Pirates were very, very responsive to us. We were able to get to their vice president for whatever broadcasting, who called the stations that aired the baseball games, and the ads were pulled from those stations. And so that shows how that relationship was very helpful, because I mean, people were literally trapped in their cars or on a bus or wherever and couldn't change a station fast enough to not have to hear that really nasty language. So hopefully it shows their responsiveness reflects, I think, their over friendliness, that it needs to be a fast action in other opportunities. And I was very impressed that they understood what it meant for the sisters to manifest and how that might be an issue with security rules and purses and things like that. And we were able to smooth that all out ahead of time. So that was very helpful. We are thinking that, this kind of relationship could extend to other institutions in the city if they were interested and we were interested. So there's no reason we couldn't do this with the Cultural Trust or with, of course, the Penguins or the Steelers, but that's not on the table right now. But anyone who feels the need to bring that up or suggest it or wants to spearhead it, feel free to ask about that.
Sue, I know the Penguins are very interested. I know somebody, I don't want to name at the meeting here right now, but somebody who was at Pride downtown reached out and said anything they could do, let them know. So I think that's a very good introduction. I don't know anybody at the Steelers, but I think the Penguins would definitely be on board.
Richard, are you offering to head up the official hockey outreach?
Coming from a hockey college, yes, I could help with that.
Were you a player of the hockey college or a
God,
fan?
no.
Okay.
My school was very close to Canada, so we had a lot of Canadians, and that was our only school sport of note.
So the Penguins are a pretty obvious next step, because they're already doing some things. That Kevin Acklin, the president, is a big ally. This is the first year that
that's who I talked to. Yeah.
So Kevin, so the Penguins, the Pirates, and the Steelers teamed up to be bronze sponsors at Revolution Pride, and it's the first time they've done that. And getting the Steelers involved was a big deal. So
And also the Penguins have a foundation that have been very generous in supporting many cultural and arts organizations. So I know it's not something that we could tap into because we're not a 501c3, but I know that we could sort of give other community groups a way to maybe tap into those resources if they're doing an event. So I think that's another positive relationship that could happen.
One other thing along that line is what the Pirates did at Pride Night was make a concerted effort to rotate LGBTQ artists into the music that night. And, you know, what we've talked about moving forward is having local LGBTQIA artists highlighted in that as well, because that's a group who would benefit. And the commitment we did get from Niley was that by the end of August, they would convene a meeting with community groups, True T and everybody who wants to be this Steel Softball League, and we should be there to talk this all out. And so we can start planning for next year, but they should hear what the community has to say and listen, you know. So, all right, let's move on. No, don't come in. Don't come in. Sorry, I'm talking to my wife right now. Okay, so, oh, please. Billy, talk about the council proclamation. I need to take a breath for a minute. Please.
Sure. Well, with commission assistance, I mean, we did some work on offering text for a proclamation noting the 50th anniversary, the 50th year of LGBTQIA Pride events in Pittsburgh. The first parade was in 1973. And so there was a proclamation that was authored by the staff, I guess, of Teresa Kale-Smith and Bruce Krause, after we offered some text to give them some guidance, some things to work with. And that was, there was a press conference, and then the proclamation event. I guess they gave it to us, but it's really a proclamation for the community, not for the commission. That plaque with the words on it was presented on May 31st in council chambers, and there was a press conference that preceded it in the open area outside of council chambers on the 5th floor of the city county building. So that's sort of the logistics of it. Maria Montagna spoke, and so did Bruce Krause, and Sue Kerr and I all spoke at the press conference. And there was some media coverage of it.
I hope this
A lot
year.
of media coverage, actually, a lot of media coverage. And there was some,
Yeah, Richard was there. I'm sorry, Richard.
Yeah.
there was some press people there that were a little more aggressive than I would have liked to have seen. And also a side note, I will be keeping, I am the caretaker of the proclamation. So if anybody wants to stop by the store and physically look at it, it is available here anytime.
One of our goals this year was to make sure that we had a proclamation about Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride, and that proclamations related to events or organizations certainly could take place and happen, but that we would make sure that the overarching one wasn't tied to one thing. There's so much happening this year around Pride. It would be fantastic if all those groups got their own proclamations. It would keep those staffers pretty busy. But and the way that we identify when we're going to seek a proclamation or participate in that is when someone is moved by the spirit to do that. So if someone would like something recognized, we've done Pittsburgh Black Pride, we've done LGBTQ History Month, we've done Trans Day Visibility, where we've issued statements, and we've also, supported proclamations. But that is a really good example of a way a single commissioner can, propose something, and city council staff will help you with all of it. We've actually talked about doing a little training. They have a nice little quick training on how to do a proclamation. And if you want to, okay, excuse me, sorry.
Let me just say, the city will guide you through the process. So it's very easy. They will help you with language, and they will go step by step to help you. So it's not a daunting task. That I've had so many of these written for friends and organizations, and you just have to go to one of your city council people, and their staff person will help you. So it's a very wonderful way to recognize an organization or a person, however you want to do it.
I think so Sue needed to step out. We still have 15 minutes available to address the other things in the agenda. Denise or Sarah, do you want to lead us through the agenda at this point?
I'm happy to jump in here. We have very little left. But just making sure that all of these things, I did want to add one quick thing, if that's okay. And I feel bad that Sue's not here because it involves her, but I think it's important for us to note it. As we're talking about legislation and policy and other things, there was an opportunity for us to not only do a training like this on how to put out, how to get a proclamation for Pride, but also how to help people go through training on responding against ordinances. And so that's something that the Interbranch Commission, which is a PA commission of judges, is interested in partnering with us for. The last time we tried to do it, we had some challenges around technology and recording and budgets, but that's something that the Interbranch Commission could take care of. And so if there's a group of folks, in addition to Sue, from this commission who are interested, that opportunity is reemerging given the 490 plus, probably over 500 by now, pieces of legislation across the US that are popping up everywhere. And so we need some additional support from commissioners to help with that. And that would be a really great way for folks to get involved in a one-time thing.
Well, why don't we talk about that at our executive committee meeting in the first Thursday of July, and then get it on the agenda for July to reinvigorate that workshop that we had planned for last year. Because with this new support that you're describing, it seems like we could make it happen.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. So from here, we want to open it up to policy updates on anti-LGBTQ actions. If folks
we still have commissioner reports of attendance at Pride events. I think the only reason we don't want to skip over that one too fast, right above, is that if there are, there's events this weekend and next, this coming, and if people are planning on going to them, and Denise, I will forward you some choice photos that I have taken from the big event in Pittsburgh, but one of the things we want to do is collect photos and notes of the various Pride events to put on our Facebook page. So rather than spending any time on the Pride events, because we've done that already in prior meetings and there's calendars available, just, if you go anywhere, take some pictures and forward them to Denise.
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, please do part B now.
Thank you. Yeah, so we wanted to go through some local legislative and policy updates on anti-LGBTQIA actions. And so I want to invite folks who are a little more well-versed in things like House Bill 318, 216, and 138 to jump into the conversation here. But we wanted to talk a little bit about, first, the Parental Rights and Education Act, i.e. Don't Say Gay, the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and then the Gender Affirming Care and Time Period to Take Action. So Billy, is this something that you can jump in while we're waiting for Sue to rejoin us?
Sure, I'll say a couple things. And one thing, it looks, all three of these pieces of legislation, and by the way, I found another one that was introduced on May 31st. That is, this is like so like insane. It is a bill that forbids culturally relevant and sustaining education. It would amend the school code to forbid professional development of educators in Pennsylvania on cultural relevant and sustaining education is prohibited. But I'll send, it's a very short bill. That one, as well as these three, are unlikely to become law in Pennsylvania because of the, we're not sure they would even get out of the House, that they would, be adopted in the House. On our agenda, they've been referred to the Education Committee or the Judiciary Committee because 318 and 216 amend the school code, and 138 adds to some judiciary regulations in the state of Pennsylvania. But all three of them are unlikely to become law, and Governor Shapiro certainly would veto these bills. But we should keep an eye on them. And I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a letter to each of the sponsors of these bills, a short letter, polite, not a outrageously angry letter, but one that just describes why what they are doing is harmful. We've seen in Florida just a bill that has language similar to the Parental Rights and Education Act that's in the Pennsylvania legislature right now. And when it passed, it's not that the language of the bill seems to be so prohibitive, but teachers are afraid to do anything. It says in the Pennsylvania bill that you cannot teach there'd be no instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity in the House Bill 318. And so, well, first of all, that's crazy because, you line up little kids to go to the bathroom, you're teaching gender identity right there. So it's, it's nuts already. But but anyway, I had a friend, Tony Woods, who was a kindergarten teacher at Colfax and other schools in Pittsburgh Public Schools. And he had a picture of his husband on his desk in his classroom, and his kindergarten kids would say, "Oh, Mr. Woods, who's that?" And he would say, "Oh, that's my husband. That's my husband, Ron. Oh, when do we get to meet him? When is he going to come in?" I mean, it was so genuine and kind the way children would react to it. But doing that in Florida right now, teachers don't do that because they're fearful of losing their job, because that would be instructing about sexual orientation. So it really is shut things down in Florida. This bill is all, as you all know, I'm not really telling you anything you don't already know, but that is, so I think we need to write to the people who, not only that, like our representatives in the city probably are very supportive of our view on it, but there are some that aren't, and there certainly are the sponsors need to hear from us, I think, as individuals, and we could organize some letter writing. I am a real proponent of handwritten or typed and signed letters rather than just allowing an organization to write something for you and you sign up and then they ask for $10. I mean, it's worth a lot more. So not that you shouldn't donate to queer organizations. I'm not saying that, but a handwritten letter or a typed letter and signed to a legislator has a lot more power. It's like worth 100 emails or 10 standard letters. So I think we need to do some work on getting back to that. I mean, if there's someone in Jefferson County or Butler County that gets 50 letters from around the state, they're going to notice it, that they're being noticed in a negative way. And we can say, look, there are people in your district, that you are harming by promoting this type of legislation. The Fairness in Women's Act is absolutely absurd. It means that trans kids in the 3rd grade can't play in the group of children that they would choose to play with. It's so ridiculous. It's not about it's simply about competitive sports at the senior high school or college level and the things that are going on there. It's just a horrible bill, but they're not going to get very far in Pennsylvania, at least right now, but the sponsors need to know why they're bad, and we should be writing to them.
Mate, I apologize for the disruption to the meeting, and it shouldn't happen again. Thank you for picking up for me. Billy, could you circulate some talking points that people could use?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've written about the Sports Act and actually in a resolution that was adopted by the American Federation of Teachers. The Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers has had two queer resolutions that have been adopted nationally by the 1.7 million member AFT. And we're the only local in the few thousand locals in the AFT that's done that. So I have some talking points already prepared for certainly for the sports one, but yes, I can do that for these others. The gender affirming care one, it looks like it's just to expand the time that a young person who's maybe no longer young now, adult age, could sue a healthcare provider, which is so rare anyway. I mean, these bills also are they're really solutions in search of a problem. These bills are really just absurd. They're not solving anything. They're not addressing anything that's happening. They're just trying to make a political point and scapegoating gay people or queer people, all members of the community,
And as we're
primarily
seeing,
trans in some ways.
yeah, really, as you know, we see in Florida, the healthcare bill there that was about youth ended up because of the language, meaning that trans adults could not get healthcare, cannot access certain pieces of healthcare. And as these things are challenged in court, it's just consuming millions of resources from our community to fight these battles that we have to do. But that is a lot of resources that's not going to be directed to the other kinds of things we also have been trying to work on. So is there any interest in our commission in writing a will of the commission letter, a letter to the General Assembly sponsors about this? Would anyone like to make a motion that we should oppose these three bills?
Well, I'll make a motion that the Pittsburgh LGBTQIA plus commission opposes the three bills that are identified in our agenda, and I'll tidy up the motion if we move on this for the minutes. But and that the commission communicates its concerns about the bills to the sponsors of the bills as well as the leadership in the House. We could we could send it to the Senate leadership and the governor too.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. In addition to this, our friendly amendment in support of the legislation the affirming legislation that has been introduced, because it's equally important that we acknowledge what's going on well.
And that actually can pass and get signed at the
yes.
Senate. It's in the hands of the Senate now.
For the first time, we have a real chance to get the non-discrimination legislation passed, even with the Republicans controlling the Senate, because they think of it as a pro-business bill and a fairness bill. Now, I don't know about the hate crimes legislations and the other pieces that have been introduced, what their chances are, but just getting that one bill across the finish line would be tremendous. So I would also like to support those as a commission, in as well as opposing these particular pieces. I would like to support the Fairness Act in the General Assembly. Is that an amendment you can receive, Billy?
Yes.
Sarah, is that okay with your second?
That unmute, yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor of the motion that Billy just said? Aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
That's 2, 3, I can't see any of you, so you have to say it verbally.
Aye. Richard.
Aye.
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 Okay. Good. So we have enough to pass. Any opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Billy, please draft that and circulate it to the commission so that we can approve the language. And again, to our new commissioners, if there are other legislative issues that you would like to bring to us, please feel free to do so at any level. Is that all that you wanted to present under that, Billy?
Yeah, I think we're done with that. We're nearly out of time. Also, Julian has his hand up.
Julian,
Maybe he's voting. I don't know.
he might have voted. Julian, if you want to say something.
I'm sorry, everyone. It's just really loud in the situation I'm in right now, but I'm sorry.
Thank you. One thing I want to bring up under new business announcements, tomorrow afternoon at between 2 and 3 o'clock at the City County Building, there will be an anti-transgender live streaming event that is permitted as a free speech action. When they had this event in September, 6 people showed up who oppose transgender everything, and hundreds of people who support the trans community turned out in a counter protest. The city's issued an advisory about it because of it's happening at the end of the day on a weekend, and the organizers have done some dog whistling for the Proud Boys, which is a concern. Now, how legitimate that is or credible is something we can't determine, but everybody should just be conscious of that. It's also going to really be a lovely way to intersect with the Taylor Swift traffic coming through downtown. And we have reached out to GLAAD. I have reached out to GLAAD and asked them to see if Taylor Swift might make a statement, because she's going to reach tens of thousands of people if she just says one thing, as opposed to this live streaming piece. So that's a proactive way to respond. We've tried to get some commissioners' permission to observe this event from the portico with the other city officials, but we don't have an answer on that yet. But our thought being that this is an area, we should show up there. And Billy and Sarah had agreed to do that with me. Obviously, we can't all go. That would be intimidation of their rights. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we'll see. However, if you are in the downtown area, add that to your list of things to circumnavigate. Monday is Juneteenth in Pittsburgh. I hope that everybody is planning to acknowledge that event and our activities and events in that day. It's an important day, and we can make sure that's on our calendar. Any other announcements?
I just want to say really quick, during the big Pride event, my Pride flag was photographed by Associated Press, and it was featured in photographs of prides across the country, and it was in USA Today also. It was a beautiful photograph. I could share it for our social media. It showed us coming across the Andy Warhol Bridge.
Yeah.
And I was surrounded by a community of trans children and friends. So it was a representation of our complete community. So it was very wonderful.
It's a beautiful photo. I think Fat Mandy was in it, and she looks great. Do we have any other announcements? Is there any? It's Pride Month, so I know a lot's happening. Is there anything you want to bring to our attention? Kathy, did you have something you wanted to mention? Didn't you say earlier? Was there? No? Okay. Chris, is there any plan for Black Pride Pittsburgh yet? For Pittsburgh Black Pride?
From my understanding, I think Pittsburgh Black Pride will be postponed this year. I'm no longer on the board of directors for the organization. If you guys do have questions, you can contact the executive director, which is Andre Brown, and I'll be happy to share this information with everyone.
Okay, we'll go directly to them, and I noticed there were no dates posted, and we want to make sure that we're supporting the longest running pride of event in Pittsburgh's history.
Absolutely.
We should also note this year is the 50th anniversary of the first Pride March, the Gay Rights March, Pittsburgh Gay Rights March, I think. Pittsburgh Gay Pride, that's what it was. In June 17th, 1973, from Point State Park. There are several people still with us who were there, not here at this commission meeting. And I'm always humbled when I think of how brave those people were to take that walk. Some of the bravest perhaps who've ever walked among us. I can't imagine. Of course, I was only 2.5, so that was another reason I wouldn't have been there. But then we also want to talk about 30-year anniversary of the March on Washington, National LGBTQ March on Washington, which our own Billy Hellman was one of the national co-chairs and proudly represented Pittsburgh and has a lot of great stuff to share about that. So how amazing that we have so many things to celebrate, so much history that's guiding us. So Cece, Julian, any final parting thoughts, comments, things you want to tell us about? It's okay to promote. Self-promotion is not a sin here.
I just want to say thank you, everybody. Regarding Pride events, at the August Wilson Center, we do have a Pride event happening on June 30th, which is a Friday. Actually, Julian and I are partnering with that with True Tea and the August Wilson Center. So it will be a Vogue workshop and then goes into a party with a Vogue battle and live performance. So that's June 30th here at the August Wilson Center. But yeah, that's about it. I thank everyone for their introductions, and I look forward to working with everyone as we move forward.
Yes, I was just about to mention that, Fifi. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's exciting.
Hey, I want to end on something really positive that happened for the O'Donnell Collar family, specifically Kiwan Hall, the 15-year-old who was targeted by the neighbor with the horrible sign. And they have been through 8 hearings this year, in the last year. But this month, we have now produced 1,800 Protect Trans Kids signs, and that are mostly in this region, and we're continuing to do that. But I want to tell you something real small that happened. Billy Porter was in town, good friend of Richard's, took a picture of the sign, all that sort of thing. But his team reached out to our organization and invited Kiwan and her brother to come to the show, which was lovely. And they were excited. Well, he called her up on the stage. And so she's 16 now. I'm going to get teared up a little bit. She's 16. She's a dancer. He had invited her to, is it a walk-off? Is that the right word? And the trans joy of that moment,
She did great.
Black romantic, her brother had the presence of mind, because they didn't know, had the presence of mind to record it. And I tell you, like, I would never say it's worth it, what all we've been through or they've been through, but she had time of her life, and she went to Chick-fil-A and got herself a job, and she is taking over Chick-fil-A. She's determined to make them pay her, use her pronouns, and she is probably going to be assistant team leader by the fall, I think. I mean, she's just a magnificent young woman. And but Billy Porter, just by doing that, it shows how important our ties are with people in the arts and culture. And he that was very kind of him. And I used that when I went to make the pitch to Taylor Swift to do something probably not quite like that, but I'm hoping maybe she'll wear a shirt that says Yins is a gender neutral pronoun or something, just something that gets that message out. And so I'll share the clip if you'd like to see it. It will really make your heart soar. And Cece, do you know Kiwan? Or were you at the concert?
I don't. I was at the show and got a chance to meet Billy and everything. So I did see the whole walk off. Yeah. And she was great.
She went right up. You would have thought it was planned out and choreographed. I mean, she was completely on top of that. It was Absolutely
She was like the
fantastic.
best up there, just saying.
Yeah, I'll tell her you said so. She'll like that. So, all right. Well, any other comments? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Do you want to stay around for a couple more hours? No. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone, and we will see you in July. Thank you for joining us.